Draco. I have no idea why he's legendary, honestly. His super, it's just a Rose's super but slightly different, and he has the crit ability, but honestly so many brawlers already have that ability that simply Draco no longer even feels legendary. So today I will turn Draco into an ultra legendary. Hope you enjoyed the video, and let's start off with his super actually. Because yes, all of his baseline stats and basic attack will stay exactly the same. The major thing will be the super, and more specifically, how you actually get it in a certain way. Because now, to get the dragon, instead of it being your super, you would now have a dragon bar very similar to Guz or BB's bar below her ammo. So now, for each crit that you would land, that bar would fill by 40%, and each basic attack would increase the bar by 20%. And as soon as that bar is completely full, you immediately transform into the dragon form. So this means that both the dragon and Draco have their super slots completely free. And more than that, they each form would have two supers. Similar to Chuck, where he can simply auto-aim his super to execute the trained super and aim to use the pulse, Draco and the dragon would work very similarly. So now I have the supers of Draco. The auto-aim super, Draco smashes his guitar into the ground, releasing a blast of music in a 4-tile range. That throws enemies into the air, very similar to his first gadget, dealing 1400 damage or 2800 damage at the last 0.66 tiles. The regular hit also increases your dragon bar by 20% and the crit by 40%. Very essentially, this is your gadget, but has a 360 pretty much. But don't worry, because all of the gadgets will also be changed. Secondly, you have Draco's aimed super, where he would shoot a blast of music within 5.67 tiles of range, very similar to the dragon attack, where enemies hit by that attack would get taunted by 1 second, dealing 1400 damage and 2800 damage at the last 0.66 tiles of range. Similar to his auto-aimed super, it would refill 20% dragon if you hit the 1400 damage, and it would refill by 40% if you landed the crit. So both of these supers not only would deal high damage and would allow you to even deal more attacks, because throwing the enemies into the air, it's very simple to understand where they're going to fall, and the taunt helps to get enemies closer to you for you to crit them again, getting closer and closer to that dragon. Speaking of which, we will now need to talk about both of the dragon super. So the dragon auto-aimed super, after a 0.5 second unload time, the dragon spins his tail in the 360 degree, stunning enemies for 1 second and also healing 2700 HP. This attack would have a 4-tile range. So this is just a very simple defensive super that would just allow the dragon to survive way much longer. Secondly, we have the dragon aimed super, where the dragon releases a burp within his regular range, so 5.67 tiles, which would slightly push back enemies, very similar to Pearl's super, dealing 700 damage and putting them oiled up for 5 seconds. Very similar to Amber's oil mechanic, but this one would actually stick to the enemies if they got connected. And for the next 5 seconds, if they get hit by any of the dragon's flames, they'll get lit on fire, receiving 2800 damage over 4 seconds, giving the dragon as well even more damage. But with both supers explained completely, we still need to talk about what would be Draco's actually ultra legendary mechanic. And this is the combination of being able to attack with the dragon and Draco at the same time. Explaining. When you are at the dragon form, the dragon would always blast his flames to whatever direction you're facing. Very similar to an auto-aimed super, where it just goes to wherever you're moving at, the dragon would shoot the enemy based on where you're moving. So if you're following an enemy, the dragon is just shooting flames to the front. And while that's happening, Draco himself, who's mounting the dragon, you can still use his regular attack just by auto-aiming or attacking the regular attack button. So essentially, while you're at the dragon form, you have 2 attacks at the same time. This also means that the dragon would no longer have any ammo limitation. If you're moving, the dragon is attacking. Pretty straightforward, but not that simple to control actually. Now that we've talked about Draco's complete new baseline kit, we need to talk about the gadgets because they're different. So the first gadget would be Dragon Recall. Instantly gain an additional 100% of the Dragon Bar that you already possess. So if you have 20% of the Dragon Bar, you gain 20%. If you have 40%, you gain 40%. And if you have 60%, you have your bar completely full and you immediately transform into the dragon. This gadget would have a 15-second cooldown, and this gadget is just mainly to help you in more open maps. Although it's important to mention that if you do have 0% of the dragon bar filled up, you literally don't get anything off the gadget. And when this happens, your gadget would actually be kinda gray, unallowing you to even use the gadget, so just keep that in mind. The second gadget would be called Draconic Resistance. You gain a shield, very similar to Gauss Super, up to 50% of your missing HP. This shield decays in 5 seconds and can only be active while on the dragon form. This is honestly just a reworked version of Draco's last stand gadget, because I just feel like that gadget is honestly very annoying. Immortality is annoying. So honestly, this little rework would make the gadget a little bit more balanced in my opinion, and the gadget cooldown would still be 22 seconds. Now we gonna talk about star powers. The first star power, it is called Lava Dragon. The Dragon Tailspin, so the Autoaimed Super, now also deals 1400 damage to enemies. And the Burp, which is the Aimed Super, instantly lights up enemies on fire, dealing just instantly those 2800 damage. As for the second star power, we have Overheating. The dragon now applies a bar onto the enemy that when totally filled, they release a 2.33 tile explosion, which it is the same as for example a Gene gadget or a Am's gadget, which would deal 1400 damage to everyone inside it. So how do you actually overheat the enemy? Each flame of the dragon increases that by 2%, each fire tick from the burp, for example, increases the bar by 20%, and the hypercharge, which I will talk later, each tick of damage would give 5%. So this would just be a way for the dragon to deal even more damage, because hitting a lot, like 2% might not sound like a lot, but if you're very close to the enemy, that is like 8% for just walking in their direction, which it is honestly quite a lot. So expect this star power to deal a lot more damage, and the first star power more has a safe option to instantly have them lit on fire, and the Autoaimed Super to be even more defensive. Then we have Draco's mythic gear, which would be called Dragon Egg, where you would gain the dragon bar over 30 seconds. So these mythic gear would be especially helpful in more open maps where you might not get as many hits to the enemy, while at least you still will get the dragon over time, allowing Draco to be just a little bit more versatile. And I think that this mythic gear is not broken enough to replace, for example, speed gear or damage gear or even health gear in more closed maps. And finally we have Draco's new Hypercharge, which would be called Dragon Bond. This Hypercharge would also have its duration increased to 8 seconds, and it would have 0 stat buffs. I hate stat buffs in Hypercharges. The whole gimmick of the Hypercharge is that Draco's attack and the dragon's attack are now combined into one. By the way, you can only activate this Hypercharge if you are already mounting the dragon, so keep that in mind. So while hypercharged, if you're not attacking, the dragon will just keep shooting his flames regularly, like if you're not even using the hypercharge. But if you use the attack button, the dragon would stop attack and focus all of his flames into one laser beam with about 1.67 tiles of width, which is the same as a Carl attack, just for you to have an idea. And this laser beam would have 10.33 tiles of range, so a lot of range for one single laser beam. And this laser would deal 5,600 damage per second and 11,200 damage per second at the last 1.33 tiles of range. Now, I know that this sounds like a lot, because it kinda is, but hear me out. This is the same amount of damage that, for example, Mo's drill does. I mean, the 5,600 damage, not the 11,200. So it is not that much damage. And as for the 11,200 damage at the end of the beam, well, you can very easily kill snipers, but you need to aim the beam relatively well. It wouldn't be hard to land, I'll give them that, but it would be very deadly. As for the projectile speed, you might be wondering, this would work very similar to Mo's actually drill, where the attack is nearly instantaneous. So you aim the attack and you immediately reach pretty much the bottom of the range. So this hypercharged laser beam would at close range maybe not feel like the most lethal attack in the world, but especially at the maximum range, it would just honestly delete everything. As for the super of the Dragon Form, it is a little bit more complicated, where you would execute the burp within the regular dragon range. So it would have those 5.67 tiles of range, but on the exact opposite position of where you're aiming, Draco executes his aimed super, where it is that music blast, which would taunt enemies for 1 second, also dealing the 1,400 damage at the shorter range and the crits at the end of the range. Again, just like his aimed super. And after 1 second of using the super, both Draco and the dragon execute their supers again, but in the opposite direction. So essentially, you get 2 dragon supers and 2 Draco supers in this hypercharged super. Again, I know it sounds like a lot, but the probability of you actually hitting the entirety of the hypercharge, it's honestly impossible. The enemy would have to literally be stuck in the middle of you and the dragon and get hit by both waves of the super. On top of that, it would just be unrealistic that you would hit both supers at the same time. But on the other side, you get the burp, which would oil up enemies or instantly lead them on fire depending on the star power, and 1 second right after that you get the taunt, which pulls enemies closer to you for the dragon to way much more safely hit them with the laser beam. And there you have it. This is the rework that I would give to Draco in order to make him ultra legendary. The ability to have 2 attacks at the same time, it is genuinely unique. No other brawler has that in the game right now. The Dragon Bar would make Draco not as toxic in my opinion, because like the fact that you can use Draco on open maps in a lot of cases, it's generally impressive. And the amount of supers that he would also have, very similar to Chuck, is another mechanic that he would have. No one other enemy has the ability to oil up enemies except for Amber, and even her, that ability works in a very different way, so I'm very proud of the way this rework came out. Not my favorite, honestly, but hey, it's in the top 3, I guess. Some other important stuff that I need to mention is that the Dragon Bar, it is not associated at all with the Draco's tank trait. And the super recharge rate and charge rate are all exactly the same, except for the hypercharged laser beam, which each tick of damage would give you 8% charge rate. So imagine like the charge rate is the 8 flames that Draco shoots combined into one in a certain way. Another important thing, it is how you actually cycle the dragons. So the way it works simple. When the bar is full, you use the bar goes back to 0, and each flame that the dragon hits recharges the bar by 2%, and the burp also charges the bar, but instead of like the overheating star power, it only increases the bar by 5% per tick. So it would be possible to reuse the dragon, because as soon as the bar would be back to 100%, you would execute like your super, your old super, again, getting the dragon for an additional 10 seconds. Although now doing these would have nowhere near as much value, because you wouldn't get any heal from doing that, and you wouldn't get any ammo from that, because you actually don't gain ammo at all. Like, the dragon attacks all by himself. He does not need you, you just need to move. So actually cycling dragons with this rework would be nearly as effective. And the final thing that you should know is that I will put in the description a what if Draco is too strong and a what if Draco is too weak, which I honestly with this rework have the feeling that he would be too weak, in the description in case you think that he's broken or insanely weak. With all this being said, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all on the next video.